Manchester United are preparing themselves for a busy summer transfer window and could be about to splash the cash and spend £102 million on a new attack. Jason Wilcox is leading the way for Tyler Dibling. Victor Osimhen is seen as an alternative target to Cunha Delap. And United could still sell Garnacho to Napoli. United are chasing a new midfield partner for Ugarte as Casemiro is told he can leave this summer. All this plus more in today's video as we run through all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with Man United's new attack. So Manchester United are interested in signing Matheus Cunha. Cunha has a release clause of £62.5 million. Cunha's agent will fly to England soon for face-to-face talks with potential buyers and has already made some initial contact with United. Now, that came via Alex Crook and Ben Jacobs on an interview they did together on Talk Sports. I would say, but I find both journalists hit-y-missy, to be completely truthful. Ben Jacobs is seen as more of a top-tier journalist, but I always find him to be hit and miss personally. Ben Jacobs also went on to say a move for United appeals to Matheus Cunha. A lack of Champions League football, should United not win the Europa League, would not deter the player. And they also said that Nottingham Forest have a firm interest in Matheus Cunha, but it's understood from those close to the player that he prefers to join a Big Six club, even if Forest qualify for the Champions League. So that's interesting that he would sacrifice Champions League football potentially to come to United, according to this kind of report. The worry I have, though, with Matheus Cunha is I seen this stat yesterday. The longest time spent walking, and Matheus Cunha is top of the charts. So, but then the data kind of suggests something different as well. And if you want somebody, like there was an article, it was done on the 21st of March, so I don't know what it's like now, because it was done like a couple of weeks ago by Opta Analysis, where they've done an obviously with all the data and stuff, saying that Matheus Cunha spends the longest time walking out of any player in the Premier League, ahead of Van Dijk, Cristiano Romero. Amad Traore's an interesting one as well, and Konsa from Aston Villa as well. And that's a kind of concern that I have with Matheus Cunha. Also have a concern about the discipline issues as well. But outside of that, I mean, he is a good player, isn't he? Let's be real. So this is his kind of FB ref stats versus other forwards in the league, and that's not bad, is it? And that's why the data is a little bit skewed, because he's in the top 92 for tackle, top 99 for interceptions, top 78 for blocks, and top 68 for clearances. Yet he's the most walked Premier League player according to the data as well. But he's still up there, with tackles, interceptions. But the report was saying that Wolves' manager was kind of critical around his work rate and stuff. So that's a bit of a kind of red flag for me. But outside of that, he's not got bad stats, has he, in terms of, successful take-ons, top 98, progressive passes, everything you would want like in a number 10. Can also play as a striker as well, so could provide you kind of cover up there as well. Premier League proven. A really good age as well, if you want to bring somebody in more experienced, because obviously the news breaking yesterday, and we're going to run through, there's been a couple more updates, was that United are looking at Cunha and Delap, £40 million for Cunha and Delap, £62 million for Matheus Cunha. That would be, that I think would massively improve our front line if we were to get Cunha and Delap. And someone did shout it out in the comments yesterday, actually, that they'd be okay with going Delap, because the concern with Delap is his age. If you got an experienced number 10 or somebody to play around him as well, Matheus Cunha, I think, would tick that kind of box. Would be expensive, though. Personally, I like the idea of going for Trincao ahead of Matheus Cunha, but call me crazy on that one. I just don't want to fall into the hype train around Cunha, because I got my fingers burnt with the Onana situation and a few other players in the past, where all the hype on social media and, going around is Matheus Cunha is really good and X, Y, and Z, and then they come in and they're not really all that. So I'm kind of reserving a little bit of judgment on Matheus Cunha. But when I've watched him against us, I've always thought he's been an outstanding player. So, but yeah, give us your thoughts on Matheus Cunha. He's got 29 appearances, 15 goals, 4 assists. Again, one of the concerns I've got is the assist numbers. Scores a lot of goals for himself, and obviously we need goals in the team, so I'm not going to, complain if we get somebody in that's capable of scoring 15 to 20 goals a season. But again, where would the service be to the striker if you've got a number 10 that's kind of shooting and scoring themselves? But who cares if you're winning games and we're scoring goals as a team? That doesn't really make too much of a difference as well, and can play in multiple positions as well. Matheus Cunha is a really good player. I like the idea of that. I like the idea of maybe Delap and then Matheus Cunha coming in, because I think it gives you a right balance of somebody younger, up and coming, both Premier League experienced as well, which is massive. Like, how many times have we taken a gamble on players from overseas that just can't kind of cope with Premier League football, and it's always an unknown. And it would be exactly the same for Gyökeres, Osimhen, Sesko, Jonathan David, all of these players that I do kind of rate, and I'd be happy with any of the strikers that we're linked with, to be fair, because I think anything is better than effectively nothing, which we've got at the moment. But obviously there is value in players that have played in the Premier League and have played against the sort of defenders in the Premier League as well, and proven that they can score goals and do well against them. I do think there's a little bit of value in that one as well. But give us your thoughts on Matheus Cunha. Obviously, I'd want to wait for a little bit more credibility, because Ben Jacobs and Alex Crook, not the most credible, but it's not the first time we've been linked with Cunha. It's not going to be the last time as well. I just worry, do we have those sort of funds available this summer? Will other teams come in for him that are maybe better positioned to, like Chelsea will probably want to sign him if we're in for him as well, because they seem to be all over the place that we're linked with at the moment as well. So, there is that kind of concern as well. But, I think that would be, £102 million pretty well spent between Delap and Matheus Cunha, because I do think that would be a massive improvement on our kind of forward areas as well. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. It'd be interesting to hear your opinions on Matheus Cunha. Let's go through some other transfer news. So obviously, Manchester United are preparing themselves for a busy summer transfer window and want to replace Garnacho and Højlund with Ademola Lookman and Victor Osimhen. Now, that came from Caught Offside. Obviously, I brought you the Lookman news last week. Osimhen's been, it's like a daily brief now at the moment with the Victor Osimhen kind of story. So Caught Offside suggesting maybe we would be looking to sell Garnacho and Højlund and bring in Lookman and Osimhen as their kind of replacements, and that would not be... I think short term that would be an upgrade. I would worry about the long term, because I think Garnacho and Højlund still have potential. It's just they're being thrust into the first team and almost have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they're the two that are expected to do things at a very young age, which I don't necessarily think is fair. And then Lookman and Osimhen, like, it's the opposite of what we're being told from Ineos want to do, where we're being told we want to bring in young developmental players and avoid signing, players at 26, 27 on high wages and high salaries and high transfer fees as well. And that story feels a little bit like it would be the opposite of what we're being told. But not the first time, not the last time we're going to be linked with either Lookman or Osimhen. Now, on Victor Osimhen, Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mail, who's a good source, said that Victor Osimhen is one of the alternative targets to Liam Delap, and United could sell Alejandro Garnacho to Napoli as part of a deal to sign the Nigeria striker from the Italians. So, Chris Wheeler, who is pretty decent, he's broke some news before Ornstein and Romano recently regarding transfers and stuff regarding United, and some bits behind the scenes as well. So, clear connections at the club. Still, again, along with Laurie Whitwell, suggesting that maybe some kind of possibility around some sort of swap deal with Osimhen and Garnacho. Obviously, the stories the other day was Garnacho secretly put his house up for sale. What you read into that is entirely up to yourselves. The reports, again, were that Napoli's sporting director's been in London having talks with us and, of course, Chelsea. No smoke without fire with Osimhen, but it seems mad that we're now getting briefed that Delap's like the number one striker target, but still in the background getting linked with Osimhen. I mean, can't see United doing a madness and getting Osimhen, Delap, and Matheus Cunha. I don't think we've got the funds available for that, as much as I would sex we all over the place if that was the case. But I can't see that one happening. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, on Liam Delap, Manchester United have made Liam Delap their number one striker, number one target this summer. United are ready to trigger Delap's release clause of around £40 million if Ipswich are relegated from the Premier League. Delap is their favourite ahead of Osimhen, Gyökeres and Ekitike. So again, Chris Wheeler from the same report kind of contradicting himself around the Osimhen story, but saying that Delap is the number one target, but if they can't go for him, then there's still potentially a deal to be done for Osimhen, which might involve Garnacho having to go to Napoli. So I think, reading between the lines of that report, and this is just going off of that report, that maybe we've got the money to go and get Delap, but maybe don't have the money to go and get Osimhen, and to go and get Osimhen would require either Champions League football or a Garnacho sale. That's how I kind of read that report. But again, we need to wait and get a bit more kind of meat on the bone, or a bit more credibility going forward as well. Although, like I said, Chris Wheeler has been fairly decent recently. And then also in the report, it said Man City have a buyback option in the £20 million deal that saw Delap leave the Etihad for Ipswich last summer, which is also believed to be around £40 million. However, it's understood that City are unlikely to re-sign him, and Delap wants regular first-team football, because that's one of the concerns with Delap, is the buyback clause that Man City have in the deal for that they sold Delap to Ipswich for. But apparently, according to Chris Wheeler, that's believed to be £40 million, because the worry was that City might be able to sign him back on the cheap and then sell him on for kind of profit. But apparently, if they still have to pay the £40 million, so that would make little sense for them to do. And again, according to Chris Wheeler, they don't want to do that, and the player still has to accept that deal as well. Like, it's all very well that they're having the clause in that in, but Delap might say, no, I don't want to come back to Man City, in which case he does have a say on it as well, I suppose. But yeah, it's still a potential spanner in the works regarding the Delap situation as well. But yeah, overall, like we had the reports the other day that Wilcox and Vivell have already identified the attack as the weakest kind of area. We've had reports, obviously, that Delap now is the number one kind of target. A lot of you in the comments have already been saying that we're more likely to get Delap than anybody else as well. So shout out to yous. And then if you were to get like Delap, and then you've got Matheus Cunha in as well, like, I think that would be a massive improvement on the attack. As much as I have concerns with Cunha, I don't want to kind of take away his quality and his ability on the pitch. I think he would be. He's still got things to do though. Like the walking stats are a bit of a red flag for me. But I do think Amram can crack his whip and maybe get him to play. The fact that he's walking more than Rashford, and we were criticising Rashford for, mincing around the place, was actually quite a concern when I seen that kind of stat. But overall, it's a big outlay. Do United have £102 million to spend on those two positions? We'll have to wait and see. Give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Now let's move on to some other news. Now, a player that might actually be more realistic than Cunha is Tyler Dibling. So Sully Talks has been quite credible recently regarding, inside information, injury news, all that kind of jazz, suggesting that I wouldn't fully rule out Tyler Dibling. With Southampton now relegated and Tyler wanting to take a step up, there could 100% be leeway for his asking price. Internal discussions at United have been made around Tyler in the last few weeks, being led heavily by Jason Wilcox. Now, again, this is a player that Wilcox knows and rates and likes, along with Liam Delap. He's another player, and Jason Wilcox is our technical director. He's in charge of the kind of football operations and the transfer, along with him. Vivell and Amram obviously are kind of making the decisions. I would be worried about Dibling. Like, I like Dibling. I think he's got fantastic quality. When he played against us at Old Trafford, I thought he was the best player on the pitch. So no doubt in his kind of quality and stuff. The thing that's put me off about him recently is that, like, Southampton were asking for like £100 million, which is ridiculous, especially now they've been officially relegated from the Premier League. They need to kind of lower their expectation and their demands. There are rumours that, guess who else might be interested in Dibling? Chelsea, because they need wingers and young profile of wingers to come in. They're desperate for that. So Chelsea might be also interested in Tyler Dibling. Absolute madness. But obviously that connection with Jason Wilcox is clear there. I would be worried about Dibling if you bought Dibling in Delap, because I do like the kind of idea of a little bit more experience in that kind of attacking area. So that's why I'd be a little bit cool with, maybe Delap and either Trincao or Cunha, for example, who are a little bbit more older and a little bit more kind of streetwise to maybe help them out. Or you could maybe get a midfield and push Bruno higher up. That's not, wouldn't want an inexperienced front three, because that's exactly what we've got now. Obviously, with Ahmad coming back as well, I'd want a little bit of experience in that kind of particular. And when I say experience, I'm not talking like a 30-odd-year-old, but someone like 24, 25, or someone that's got like a couple of hundred games under their belt would be advantageous for me. And Dibling's kind of very young, very raw, very talented though as well. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. Might probably be more realistic than Matheus Cunha, depending on the price though. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. And then and I'll just quickly throw this in actually, because while it's in my head, what an absolute mad stat that I seen yesterday regarding Leny Yoro. So Leny Yoro, who is a kind of an exception to the rule in terms that very young, very raw, but is a top quality player, which is why I don't go necessarily along the line all the time of the narrative around, young players and getting too many young players. Like Leny Yoro's 19 years old. And look at that for a stat. So the City derby was the 12th game in a row which Leny Yoro has not been dribbled past. What an absolute beast he's becoming at the back. So age is just a number when it comes to quality. As long as they're the right quality of player, then I'm kind of cool with it. But I do think, putting a lot of pressure on too many young players is a little bit of a negative. I do think we need that kind of blend where with youth and some experience as well. And I would worry about having a completely fresh front three, for example. But if you had someone like a Cunha, or if you push Bruno higher up and get maybe a midfielder in to partner Ugarte, there's an update on that I'll go through in a second, then maybe that's not a bad way to go. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. So Casemiro will be sold by Manchester United this summer for around 15 to 17 million euros. He has already been informed of the club of the club decision to sell him. Now that came from Ekrem Connor, who I've always found, large following, gets reposted a lot, but still yet to be convinced by the credibility, suggesting that Casemiro is still, regardless of his little kind of, his mini revival, because he's been actually playing quite well recently, could still effectively be sold in the summer. And on Casemiro's kind of revival, Amram had the following to say: he wasn't playing because I understood in the moment that he was not the best option to the way we want to play, but he continued to work. The credit is all to the player. So he was kind of asked in the press conference after the City game around Casemiro, and he was like, look, when I first came in, I didn't think he'd fit my style of play, but Casemiro's been working behind the scenes and now earned his place in the squad and in the team. And, maybe he's doing it as his little swan song as well, to kind of go out on his shield, at United, if he has been told to kind of leave, and he's like, right, okay, well, if that's the case, I want to play. I don't just want to go out with a whimper, because he is that sort of character. But who knows? We need to keep an eye on it. There's obviously, that's not exactly breaking news. We know that there might be potential for Casemiro. I do think the club are looking to sell Casemiro in the summer, but it's whether we'll get a buyer because of his wage and age and, but yeah, we need to keep an eye on it. Obviously, if Casemiro goes, or even if Casemiro doesn't go, I do think we need a midfielder. So Manchester United are ready to sign Ederson if they succeed in bagging a place in next season's Champions League, according to Gibby Sports sources, as Amram is determined to find a new midfield partner for Ugarte amid lingering doubts over academy graduate Kobe Mainoo's long-term future. The Brazil international will head into this summer with a price tag in the region of £52 million, as current employers at Atlanta are desperate to keep him on board. Now, that came from Dean Jones, who can be quite decent sometimes, suggested that maybe Ederson is seen as the perfect partner to bring in for Ugarte. He wouldn't be against that, but again, where are we going to have the funds available to spend 102, 40 for Delap, 62 for Cunha? Dibling's not going to be necessarily cheap, although I think around 30, 40 million, maybe you can negotiate the deal down for if we went down that route, and then 50 odd million pounds. Like, it's a lot of money, and we're being told we don't have that sort of cash available. But again, is a player we've been linked with loads. On the midfield, though, in the same report, it did say that Ederson is not the only name on Manchester United's shortlist, as Crystal Palace's Adam Wharton is admired. Gibby Sports sources understand while Hayden Hackney's performances for Middlesbrough are still being tracked, as his athleticism, combativeness, and ability to retain possession have caught the eye. So again, potentially linking us with Adam Wharton, who I think would be expensive. Hayden Hackney for Middlesbrough, a lot less cheaper as well, and probably more realistic for the budget, what we're being told, but things can change between now and the summer. One of the ways that we could maybe afford a big kind of summer is through sales. In the same report, they were saying that Marcus Rashford could head for the exit door for £40 million in this summer, thanks to domestic counterparts Aston Villa having an option to turn his loan switch into a permanent move, and that would result in Manchester United's budget being significantly boosted as Amram aims to make his mark during the transfer window. So one of the ways, obviously, we can improve or spend more money in the summer is by selling players. Rashford is seen as he's 100% homegrown profit as well, so that could give us a little bit of a boost in terms of potential budget for the summer, but whether it's going to be enough for us to go and get the players that we've been linked with like today in today's news, I'm not entirely convinced. Maybe you could get, maybe Cunha and Delap, and then possibly with some sales, and then supplementing with like younger profile like Hayden Hackney, and a couple of kind of unknown gems from across the globe would maybe be a bit more realistic, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. It'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on today's news, because that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way out, subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.